Hi everyone, it's Suzanne Culberg, and this week I'm super excited to be chatting to Angie Evans. I came across Angie in a business group that we were both in, and where we got chatting is Angie works with birth support workers, and I was saying that I have a lot of birth support workers who are clients, and we've just been talking now. We decided to hit record and talk about self-care for birth support workers. So a lot of doulas, postpartum doulas, midwives, all these people who help people in the birthing industry, they have lots of plans for what happens if two of their clients go into labour at the same time, who picks up the kids and the activities and all the household being run and all this sort of stuff. But they don't tend to have any plans for self. And we don't know how long a labour will go for. Nobody knows, so they can be on their feet for many, many hours with nothing to eat and little, if anything, to drink. And it's exhausting, for them, obviously for the people having the baby as well. But having self-care and having plans to look after yourself, it's not a luxury, it's not a nice to have, it's the foundation for your mental and physical health. Because if you don't look after you, how can you be there for anybody else, especially in the long term? And I know a lot of my clients, they will leave the birth and then go straight to McDonald's or go straight to the servo to fuel up their car because they may have driven a long way, and then grab the chocolates and stuff. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, like, obviously, but if you have these plans in place that you're nourishing yourself first, then you actually, as I said, you have more to give to others. So I'm really keen to have this discussion with you today. Angie, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is a great topic. I train doulas, and I've been working as a birth doula for 20 years now. So yeah, we have a really high burnout rate in our industry, and I think the hardest thing is being on call. Like, there's this low level stress that just goes with being on call, and so having routines, like routines that we can just use when we're on call. And of course, all those backups. Like, I don't know very many doulas, especially if they're mothers too, who, can sustain this work if they don't have kind of a team, whether that's a supportive partner or I'm actually a big advocate of doulas working in partnership or even in groups of 3. And a lot of people, the first time they hear that, they're just like, what? Continuity of care. You're supposed to have one doula who comes and stays. If you're there for 48 hours, she's not sleeping or eating or leaving you. And that is not sustainable, and it's not healthy. And so the very basic thing I recommend is for the contract, the agreement, whatever you want to call it, with your clients, to have a disclaimer in there. Mine says, in the case of an unusually long labor, I will take breaks as needed. And then something like, so I can stay fresh, or so I can be helpful to you, because there's a reason we put on our own gas mask in the plane, right? You probably say that a ton in your work. And that is so important. And I don't, and people then, they always ask sort of the practicalities. I don't charge extra to my clients if they have a long birth and I need to bring in a backup, but I let them know I will call in a backup if they need, or I'll just take a nap and spell off with their partner or their companion. If I'm going to a birth of a solo parent, a single woman, then I will practically always bring another doula along with me. Since I train doulas, I usually have a lovely doula who wants to come along, because sometimes you do need to take turns. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with meeting our own needs. And for people who have families to take care of, or jobs that, I hear so many times of doulas who are like up all night and they get home just in time to go to their other job. For anyone in that sort of a situation, I'm a big fan of teaming up. And the way that looks is the doulas would both go to the prenatal meetings. Even if they're postpartum doulas, they're both going, usually, not always, okay, maybe half the time we meet our postpartum clients before they've had the baby. Of course, there's always that like 911 doula call when they're a month in and just, you know, crashing. But still, it's so good. Like I say we don't have to give up our family or our health or our job, our other job, to be a doula. And so this shared care looks different for every group, but I find if we present it that way to our clients, like, hey, this is how I work, and you get 2 doulas for the price of 1, or however you like to spin it, then the clients are fine with it.
Yes, I
So
think
yeah.
there's a couple of points there that you raised that I want to pick out. The first one was when you talked about the low level stress of being on call. That's something, you know, I've worked with my clients for, and there are little things that, you know, people may be doing already, but I just suggest in case they hadn't heard of them. For one of my clients, what we did was she has a different ringtone and different text message alert tone for clients versus just family. So if the phone buzzes, oh yeah, that's just going to be like, not saying people in your family don't count or whatever, but it's not like that, oh my God, I need to check that right now because I might need to run out. It can just be that, oh, it's that tone. I'll get to that, you know, when I finished eating or watching the movie or whatever. So you have that, because otherwise every time your phone buzzes, beeps or whatever, you're like, is you know, and that's not good for anyone, you know, to be that constant. Because like, you know, people who do on call, like ambulance doctors and stuff, they would do it for a period and then have a period off, you know. But with doulas who have, you know, clients due it multiple times and stuff, that it's never really ends, does it? Potentially, you know.
Yeah, it's a little adrenaline jolt every time the phone goes. And I actually train my friends, like, email me. And that's another choice. Like, my emails don't get pushed to my phone. So I'm not getting the constant like ding, ding, ding. I use WhatsApp and Snapchat and all the stuff, and all those notifications are silent. So the only notifications I have that make noise are the one for my client. And you know, most people probably have the do not disturb. We have in Canada anyway, we have the do not disturb feature on our phone. And so only my clients and my family can get through when I have do not disturb. And part of this is also educating my clients, like they know if I mean, in case they were calling from a different number or something, if they phone the 3 times, the 3rd time it'll get through the do not disturb. So
Yeah.
good communication. So I can actually, you know, turn my phone to do not disturb and be reasonably sure I'm gonna get some sleep. Another thing about sleep and being on call, lots of times, and this is totally a new doula thing, when someone, you know, one of their clients texts or calls and says, hey, I'm having some cramps, or I think I might be in labor. You know, new doulas especially will be like up all night. They're like, oh, it's happening. And then in the morning, they haven't heard anything, and they're exhausted. And then, you know, this could go on and on. Early labor is such a wild card. It can come and go. And so you know, I tell everyone, just go, like, for sure, like, plan getting out of the house and everything like that. But, you know, like, don't wait up for the phone to ring. Just trust that when you need to go, you will. And that has really, really helped me. And I love training doulas because I get all these neat ideas. One of the women I work with, and I almost always work in a team approach or partners. One of my colleagues has a whole bunch of healthy freezer meals. Like, she makes them, puts them in the Tupperware in the freezer, and on the way out the door, she just throws it in her birth bag. It's cooked, it's ready to go. And so that way she always has healthy food.
Yeah, I was totally going to touch on that. So something I recommend, that's something I work with my clients. But the other point that you just raised that I wanted to bring up too was the client education. So people know, because sometimes, you know, you're unsure, you know, when you're pregnant, or sometimes you don't really want an answer, but you just want to be witnessed, you just want to be heard. So, and this, pregnant or not, like this is with my clients too. I have the education piece. If they're just sending me an update, like, you know, that I can get to within a business day or two, like they just want to get something off their chest, versus like, I need to talk this through now. Do you know what I mean? So how to, you know, and you, as you said, you could email for this, or you could private message, or, you know, but as long as there's that clear, because there's nothing worse than confusion, and then people don't know, you know, so being really clear on how to contact you, when and where, and, you know, which are the ones that like now's the time, or which are the ones is like, I just need someone to share this with. But the meal thing, yes, I think that's excellent. That's something I had on my dot points, frozen meals. So like batch cooking something that you can put in the freezer, and then, you know, if you're heading out to the birth, take it with you, depending, or at least having it there, because a lot of people will have that plan for partners and children, but not for themselves. So and also having, like, I call it non-perishable snacks in my bag. Like, they might not be my first choice, but you don't want to, like, fresh fruit and then you don't get to it and it's kind of like brown, you know, but things that you could have, and everybody's is different. So like, I almost always carry around a tin of tuna. Like, I know it's not the best thing, but, you know, just, you know, you've got something, so you're not going to the vending machine and getting, you don't know how old chips or stale, you know, or something like that. Protein balls, like, so many things that you can have ziplocked or whatever in the bottom of your bag, so you're getting something to carry you through. And hydration too, like carrying water, or having, you know, something there, so you having something to drink as well, really important.
Yeah, and some of these are all really amazing suggestions, and a lot of them can come down to education. Like, for example, I don't buy a birth bag that doesn't have a good little, like, mesh thing on the side so it can hold my 1 liter insulated bottle for water, you know, and also knowing, like, being educated about where are we going to the birth. Like, if we are going to a home birth, it's pretty easy to just bring whatever, because we're going to have access to a fridge. But if we're working in a hospital, are there fridges in the birth room? Is there a communal fridge we can use? What kind of outlets? Like, I'm lucky in the hospital where I work, they have, I mean, they have the gross hospital cafeteria kind of food, but our cafeteria also has like a fresh wrapped salad bar where you can go and pick, and they make a wrap for you, or a little company called Freshie where they make real vegetable juice. And so even, and the one outlet, even at 3 a.m. I can go and they'll make a fresh squeezed orange juice, like you're watching them put the oranges into the machine.
Oh, how good is that?
It's so great. So I have, like, where I work, there's quite a luxury of being able to get good fresh made food. So, you know, there are lots of choices. Where I used to work, though, in a more rural area, there were no outlets. Like, they had a cafeteria that was like, and it was closed, you know, at 5:30 p.m. and didn't open again till the next day. Nothing in the evening, nothing in the weekend. And so if someone shows up at a place like that with no nutrients, that's going to be a rough shift, you know.
Yes.
And it's hard. Like, the sleep deprivation's one thing, but the you know, having your blood sugar bottom out is quite another thing. And every hospital has crappy vending machines. I've never seen one that has, you know, even stale almonds. Like, there's just nothing. So, you know, we don't want to have to rely on that.
And I think you've raised a really good point there in terms of the different places having different things available. And that's why I always recommend having something non-perishable with you, because you don't know where you'll end up. Like, for me personally, when I had my oldest daughter, the hospital I planned to birth her at had a docking station for my iPod, had the fit bowl they provide, they had all this stuff provided. But then when I went into labour, I ended up getting transferred to another facility because it was a more complicated delivery. They didn't have any of that. So I was like, no music, because I could listen in my earbuds, but it wasn't the stuff, you know. So it's like having the stuff, because you don't know if you have access to a fridge or a microwave, or you know, any ability to keep it. So yeah, or even you can get like the small lunchboxy type esky things. Like, you might feel a little bit strange carrying it, but maybe you leave it in your car and you duck out when you have a break or something. But, you know, the different things available in the different places. Yeah, because even as you said, if you're going to a home birth, you'll have access, but if that ends up transferring for whatever reason, and then you don't take the things with you, it's all the things that you overlook until, and then in the adrenaline spike of the moment where you're fully focused, and then after a crash, yeah, especially if you have had to travel then too, because it's a further travel home. So there's all these things to, it can sound overwhelming, and I hope nobody watching it feels overwhelmed, but it's just a matter of planning it ahead of time or learning from an experience and go, oh, well, that was suboptimal. What did I learn from this? So next time I can be better prepared.
Yeah. Yeah, the preparation. I mean, I'm so into preparation. I used to live in an area where, and I still do, one of the hospitals where I work is an hour away. And okay, one way I've been able to be a doula for 20 years is sleep is my superpower. Like I can sleep anywhere, anytime. Like I drop off like this, which is awesome. So I can take a 20-minute break, curl up in a chair, sleep, and be like a little better. And I know there's lots of people who can't do that. So I'm very blessed. But the other side of that coin is if I'm sitting in my car at 3 a.m. after a long birth, I will fall asleep like that. So I always have a sleeping bag and a pillow in my car, like a good down one in case I have to, like this hospital that's far away, there's no hotels there.
Mm.
Or and I also carry my credit card, of course, and if I am somewhere, when I used to work in Alberta, I would just get a hotel for the night if it meant drive, because for me, I was not able to drive home an hour without falling asleep and putting myself and others at risk. I know there are other doulas who probably wish they could fall asleep that fast. They're fine for the hour because they're all amped up, like, oh, I was just at this birth, and have all the adrenaline. So we need to get to know ourselves, and some of that's through trial and error, and some of it's just through, asking other people. One thing I find really interesting, as you're talking about the lunchbox and stuff, like that fits in my bag. When I started working as a doula, I would show up with like 3 bags with all the different, like one had a birth ball in it and all this stuff. And now when I show the birth bag at the doula trainings I do, it's almost embarrassing because everything in my bag, like 80% of the stuff in my bag, is for me. It's like my own self-care, like a clean clothes and the toiletries, and I do carry some massage balls and oils and things for my clients, client notes, of course, things like that. But the more I do this work, the less stuff I need to bring, which makes it easier. I have a backpack I grab, it's always packed. It lives in the guest room because my pets put hair on everything. And I even have to keep my my snack bars, like my protein bars, in there because my family eats them or my dog eats them. So yeah, I just have, most of my bag is all about me now.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's good. And also as part of the education with the clients, like how to best prepare for their birth and what to have with them. And, so I think that's a really good point. And the other thing I wanted to raise that we haven't touched on yet is exercise, as in like movement and stuff, because I worked with a lady once and she really liked to hike. And when she'd never take on clients who were due within 6 weeks of each other. That was her choice because she didn't want to double book or risk, um, and she was like, oh, I've got a baby due, so I can't hike, and it was really interfering. Well, I'm probably not articulating it well, but like because that could be a long period of time. So we know babies don't always come on schedule. So it was little things like looking for hiking trails or bushwalks that she could do closer to home or closer to where that person was due to deliver, so that she was still looking after herself and not always putting herself on hold for her clients. Because if you're not, in the best mental and physical health for yourself, I think that also contributes to burnout. So have you got any tips or things about exercise for doulas?
Yeah, so one, again, good client communication. Like I tell my clients, that I check my email first thing every morning. And if they had some niggling thing overnight, but they don't feel like they need to wake me up, send an email. So that morning, I won't drive out to, the hiking area that's far. I let them know that, if I've heard nothing from you, I might be on a 2-hour bike ride, or I mean, when there's also, really, it's that around the 40 weeks where I'm more careful. If I have a client who had a fast birth before, then yeah, for them, I'm probably going to stick around closer. There's always stuff to do. Also communicating with, like, my yoga studio knows. I let them know. They ask me to let them know when I sign in if I have someone who's imminent. I just tell them I have to put my phone under my mat. I put it to silent, and I just check it halfway through to see if there's a message from a client. So my clients know that, you know, it takes me, and this is sort of an industry standard, like up to 90 minutes. So if I'm in the middle of a 1-hour yoga class, they, you know, they're not going to be worried.
Yeah.
I do make sure they have my backup, and, you know, exercise like at a birth. A lot of the exercise I do is stuff that can be done anywhere. I mean, not hiking and biking and those nice things, but we have, in my hospital, we have a stairwell, and in the middle of the night when you're getting really cold and tired, going up and down the stairs or just using them to do lunges and things like that. Like, there's all at, I'd say even at the smallest hospital, it's a little hard right now with COVID. They want us to stay in the units. But normally, I'm like, you can be found on the stairs in the middle of the night, just, you know, because those big quad muscles will warm us up nicely. And it's not ideal, but it's something, like just having a little workout prepared that you can do in little 10-minute snippets or something in the hall. And I'm not scared to do squats right in the room. Like at my hospital, there's everyone, once they're in a birth room, they have the birth room and then their own bathroom with a bathtub. And a lot of my clients love to be in the bathtub. And if they have a partner, the partner's in there too, and with them. And so I'll be just in the birth room by myself, listening, keeping an ear open if they don't need me in there. And maybe I'll just do like 10 squats or lunges or something. And the staff, they're just used to that because it helps me stay awake, you know.
Yeah, I
with
think you
sleep
raised some
as a
excellent
superpower.
points. With the yoga, as you said, the studio knows. So that's once again about communication. So it's client communication, but also communication about where you're going. Having that under your mat that you'll check halfway. And I imagine if you were on call or that, maybe you'd choose to position your mat near the door so you're at the back of the class. So if you need to duck out, you're not interrupting. So, you know, people are really accommodating if we're upfront and asking about it, but, you know, otherwise it's just that rude chick who just wanders out half the time. Do you know what I mean? But, you know, like I'm sure many gyms and stuff would be accommodating like that. And then, as you said, you know, because the births can be a long time, and it's a long time to be standing or sitting and getting the blood moving, keeping yourself warm, keeping yourself awake, and keeping yourself active. And even those of us who work from home, like between my client sessions, I work on Zoom. Under my desk here, I've got foam roller and the little things. So the things you were saying you have in the birth bag that, you know, could be for the client, you could also potentially use for yourself so that, you know, you're getting that bit of movement so you're not, you know, standing around. And as you said, you're listening, you're in the next room. And some people, nurses, doctors, other people might think, what? But, you know, I'm sure that they see all sorts of things. So anything else that you can think of? So we've covered, you know, meals and snacks and preparing. We've covered phones and alerts, turning off other unneeded dings. Covered movement. Anything else that you can think of?
Yeah, this is an important one. It's taking care of our, you know, whether you call it spiritual or emotional or, you know, just that non-physical health. Sometimes it's really hard to be at a birth. Like, it's hard to see the way some people are treated while they're in their birth. And sometimes we feel helpless. Sometimes we see things that are difficult. Of course, you know, sometimes we see things that are beautiful and empowering too. And even with, you know, with postpartum, I know postpartum doulas sometimes walk into a real mess, and, you know, they're and we're all, like, anyone who works as a doula or an EMT or any of those like weird shift kind of things, like, they're care providers, right? It's not just a job for them. So, you know, it's pretty easy to take on other people's stuff. So it's just to remind ourselves, first of all, that we can't fix everything. And just being there probably made their experience better. Like, that's one thing to remind ourselves. And then also have a, you know, whether it's a professional association or another doula or someone that we can talk to about what we just saw. And that's where working in partnership is amazing, because my clients know, you know, if I need to talk about their birth, I'm going to talk about it with that other doula they know already. Because part of doing this work, all these fields you've talked about, is keeping things in the vault. We can't just go talk about things. And, you know, our partners get tired probably of hearing about births. So, you know, technically, if we're not using names and identifying characteristics, it's okay. So for people who don't have a local association, there are some really great online groups that we can join to just talk about these things. One time I was at a particularly difficult experience, and I actually called the doulas in my town to come together, and we had a circle just for me. Like, I needed to cry and share what happened, and I don't know, I just needed them to kind of doula me and hold me up. And I would do the same. I often do the same for the doulas I'm training or other doulas in my community. So it's really important for us to have a plan. And some people don't need that. Maybe they do, I don't know, some kind of sound therapy or just whatever it is to help them sort of diffuse some of that stuff we can carry home.
Yes, I think that's a really, really important point, because, yeah, as you said, the caregivers, who cares for the caregivers, you know? And I know for me personally, sometimes if I don't lean into that, and I've got to take my own thing, then I can get resentful. Do you know what I mean? So it's like there's taking that personal responsibility for, yeah, as you said, I need my outlet, and friends, family, partners, it's not the place. It's like choosing your audience for where to get that support. And then if it's somebody in an association, or you have your group that you've set up, then it's that reciprocity, like you be there for them and they be there for you. And it's also people who get it, you know, like it's funny, trying to talk to my husband about my business. He's an engineer. He's got no idea. Do you know what I mean? So it's like having business friends, it's that kind of thing, but having people who, yeah, you can relate to, and unpacking that, like not carrying with you some of the stuff that, you know, I think the biggest one for me would be the seeing how some people aren't treated as well as, you know, they would like. But just knowing, just having that person there, having you there, can't be understated, the value of a person who's in their corner, you know, no matter what the outcome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else before we wrap up? This has been awesome.
Yeah,
Any
it
last things?
has. I think we've covered a lot.
Yes, definitely. But yeah, thank you for joining me. I think this is a really valuable discussion, and it's really important, you know, caring for the carer, and to prevent burnout, because so often, you know, we get to a place and, you know, think, is this really the industry, or is this really, you know, the best use of me, or like whatever, and really it is just we haven't had those boundaries. And so, you know, if you take everything that doesn't go well, and, as I say, get the lesson, and, you know, it's like, oh, that wasn't the best, but going forward, I've learned this. It can help reframe a lot of those experiences that weren't, you know, as we'd hoped. So I hope that's been helpful. If anyone's got any questions, feel free to comment below, and we'll come back to them. And I'll put some links where you can follow us further. I can't get the words out today. Thank you for joining me, Angie.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.